And for more on this, we're joined now by Sourabh Gupta. He's the Senior Asia-Pacific International Relations Policy Specialist at the Institute for China-America Studies. Welcome back to the show, Sourabh.
Hi, Gerald. Good to see you.
Hi there, good to see you. So for the past 2 years, Sourabh, the UN General Assembly was firmly focused on the global pandemic. This year, as we've just heard, new concerns. The themes are all there, right? The conflict in Ukraine, the food crisis, but the themes may be there, people may agree, but do you think the positions will be the same, or will there be a great divide again?
I think there will be a divide again, and the primary reason for the divide is going to be the conflict in Ukraine. I think that will be the headliner at the UN General Assembly. There will obviously be all parties coming together asking that the conflict, that there be a ceasefire, that the conflict be terminated, that there be discussions, diplomatic discussions to sort out the issue, and that warfare at least come to an end. But I think there is a divide on that front because there are some who see that that Ukraine is pushing back, having successes, and that it should be given the time to continue doing what it's doing. After all, it is defending its own territory. And there will be others who would want that the war and the consequences of the war be dealt with. But I'm afraid the divides will remain, particularly because it is such a charged issue in international society today.
Right, and so we have the global stage, right, the platform, the UNGA. But what do you think can actually come out of it?
The UNGA is useful in kind of as an agenda setter. It's not the place, except in terms of in areas of peace and security, where one can get down to the nitty-gritty details. Then it goes to the specialized UN agencies or frameworks within which these discussions are resolved. But the UNGA really sets the tone, and the leaders oftentimes show up out there to set that tone for the agenda in the coming year. And it's important this year, that's why that Ukraine willy-nilly be on the agenda, because all said and done, this is the greatest challenge to peace and security since the end, in the post-Cold War era. And the challenges aren't going away. They're here to stay, and unfortunately, there is no common cause at this point of time.
Well, speaking of challenges that are here to stay, one topic which seems to have taken a back seat during COVID is climate change and the question of sustainability. How do you see it coming back into the front seat of global action?
You know, at the UNFCCC, they have been taking the agenda forward, and they have been taking the agenda forward aggressively. And it has been a productive few years, frankly, in the UNFCCC negotiations. Even last year, they managed to have the UNFCCC in Glasgow in the little short interval that was there, and we had a treaty on methane, or at least an understanding on methane. But yes, the climate change challenge is an enormous one. We've seen it in Pakistan. A lot of poor countries now are being hit by climate change for reasons that they are only partly cause of, and the main causes lie elsewhere and in other countries. And so it just kind of refreshes the memory and gets common action together. But the nitty-gritties of that action will need to be played out in other frameworks and other specialized UN agencies.
Right. And Sourabh, at the center of the General Assembly are the speeches of leaders, including from China's State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Which in particular are you keeping a close eye on, and why? Two
groups of people. We are looking at the major advanced countries. President Biden, of course, want to see what the Russians have to say, all the major P5 powers, and say also the BRICS powers, to understand where they are coming down on things like Ukraine, because that will give us an opportunity to understand if there is going to be some common cause on that conflict. But also want to hear what they have to say on these other challenges. And beyond that, I'd like to actually hear where the body as a whole stands again, we know on climate change where it stands. It understands the urgency of it. Even on things like debt reduction and sustainable development goals, there's a broad consensus. But I'd like to see to understand the urgency with which the larger body feels that we need to have peace and security in Europe. And we saw there are a lot of countries which are critical of Russia's invasion. I want to see how that consensus plays itself out at the UN for the first time, considering that the conflict really broke out in February, and this is the first time the UNGA is meeting after the breakout of that conflict. So where the center of gravity is with regard to views on Ukraine, I think will be very important at the UNGA.
Well, Sourabh Gupta is with the Institute for China-America Studies. A pleasure to have you as always. Thank you.